All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our second Thoughtful Thursday. I am so excited to be doing these, and it's really, I hope everybody is getting something out of them. And for those of you who didn't tune in last week, I just wanted to give you a little brief rundown of why we're doing this. This is just another way for us to support our awesome Donate Life community here in Kentucky, West Virginia, and parts of Indiana, and beyond. So we have a lot of wonderful Donate Life ambassadors, and we also have a lot of wonderful partners with the hospitals and coroners and circuit court clerks and KYTC offices. And so, mental health is pertinent to everybody, and we wanted to make sure that we were supporting the community that supports this cause all the time. So tonight we are going to be talking with Chad and Rachel, and they are from Mason County, Kentucky, and they both work in the high school up there. And they have a really tremendous story, and I'm really excited for you guys to hear about it and hear about, some of the mental health challenges as you receive a transplant, and some of the mental health challenges as you are taking care of somebody and worrying about somebody who is about to receive a transplant. So if you are here, please just leave a little comment and wave hello. But I am going to turn it over to Chad and Rachel, and they're going to tell you their tremendous story and offer some tips on how to maintain healthy mental health while going through a transplant. Take it away, guys.
Thank you. And thanks for joining us tonight. We wanted to start by telling you just a little bit about ourselves. Do you want to go first?
My name is Chad Stanfield. I have had 2 kidney transplants. One was kind of faulty, and so I stayed on the list. Excuse me. For the second one, I am in my 24th year of teaching, 4 years away from home. The last 20 I've been teaching my alma mater, which is where we met. Rachel's from out of town, and we started dating our first year here, and here we are.
Tell them what you teach.
Everything?
Yeah.
Okay. I teach criminal psychology, criminal justice, criminal law, psychology, sometimes AP psychology, sociology, modern social problems, and African American history.
Yes, that's quite a bit. I am Rachel Stanfield, and this is my 17th year being a Kentuckian. I was born in Virginia, but grew up in Ohio, just north of Cincinnati. I attended Miami University and earned a degree in secondary language arts education. I was in the classroom for 15 years at Mason County High School. And then the last 2 years, I have been a school counselor at our facility. Also pictured the apple of our collective eye, Maddie. She just turned 11. She likes to be outside. She loves to make art, and she's extremely social. She loves to bake, and I think most people would say she's a pretty good mix of the 2 of us.
You take this?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. January of 2013 was kind of the starting point of the biggest part of the journey. I was originally diagnosed with kidney disease in 1998 and took some treatment, IV treatment, over the course of 6 months, and it knocked the kidney disease, we thought, out of the picture. Slowly but surely it started to come back, and we didn't realize it. I didn't realize it until probably 2012, late 2011, early 2012, and it had already come back, and again, hadn't been aware of it. And it was starting to do some debilitating type of stuff to the kidneys. January 2013, I officially started dialysis. I started doing dialysis here at home. I wanted to do it myself, so so that I could continue to teach. Had it not been able for teaching, I think this probably would have been a little bit more difficult. It allowed normality to stay to stay in place for us as best as possible. Granted, I did have to hook up to a machine at 7 o'clock at night or 7:30, and unhook at 5:30 in the morning.
You can see the picture on the screen. Maddie was 3 at the time, and she liked to help her dad get the bags out and pull the tabs and move them from the bed to the warmer and get them on the machine. And so for most of her life, she has been a part of this journey as well.
Yeah. She was 5 years old when I got my first transplant, and they weren't too keen on letting her in the transplant unit. But a couple of the nicer nurses let her slip in. They weren't aware of her presence. Kind of, I guess, looked over top of her. September 2015, we got the call. We were both at school. I was in the classroom, second period, modern social problems. I remember it like it was yesterday. They patched the call through and said it was somebody from the transplant unit. And I just thought it was something that would be one of those things where they were updating me on something. And she said, "Chad, we got a kidney." So I was like, okay. And I started listening carefully to instructions. Had to write a couple of things down just so I wouldn't forget it. When I got off the phone, I turned around and looked at my students, and I just said kidney and pieced them out, and then took out of the classroom. And I got out in the hall, and I could hear them start clapping. So then I had to find Rachel. I went to her classroom, and she wasn't there. Her aide was there, and I was like, "Where is she?" "She's in the library." So I found her in the library, and our principal was in the hall, and I told him what was up before I got to her. And I just opened the door, and I looked at her, and I said the same thing. I was like, "Kidney, gotta go." And then, explain.
I cried. That's what I do in stressful times. Angry times. I also don't like to be surprised.
And I surprised her in the middle of the school day.
So we hustled home and packed a couple bags, and Chad is a big Bob Marley fan, so we scooped as many Bob Marley CDs as we could manage to get, and headed to Lexington.
We got up there, and we found out that I was actually the alternate. And that first time, I can recall the people. We actually saw the people that were the main recipient possibilities. And I told Rachel, I heard the guy say, "I don't want it." And he was an older fella. And I don't know if that had anything to do with it or not. But I got it, and was meant to. The only problem is it didn't go well. The transplant went fine until the following morning. Everything seemed fine. They got me out of bed, which hurt. And then they realized that there was a kink in the blood flow. They had kind of pinched an artery. Blood wasn't getting to the kidney, and so it was killing it. So they had to take me in. What time was that? You remember?
It was midday.
Took me back in to the surgery room for another surgery, emergency surgery, to unkink the blood flow. Got that taken care of. And then when was this third one?
It was within the week.
Within a week, I had surgery 3 times. The scar is really deep. And the third surgery was to clean out some mess. So it was pretty kicking. But they thought that they had it where it would catch the blood flow and get to working. And I don't remember exactly how long it was. They finally realized it was only going to be about 30% effective, which was better than my natural kidneys. And I was able to get off of dialysis shortly after leaving the hospital, but they kept the port in me because they weren't certain as to when I may need to jump back on. Then eventually, what was it, August? I don't remember how far. No, it was before that. They decided to take the port out. My numbers were good enough. Creatinine was good enough to where they said, "Let's go ahead and take the port out. If you get another transplant, it's going to have to go on that side, so we may as well get it ready." And it doesn't sound like it's soon, but as you see there, April 2017 is when we got the second call, or before I got the second call. Rachel and our daughter were on vacation. It was our spring break. They had just left and landed in Florida, and we're hanging out with my in-laws. My sister-in-law lives in Florida. And so they were in Florida when I got the second call from the University of Kentucky. And my father, who had stayed with me all through 2015, because I was in the hospital for 67 days between University of Kentucky and then in with Cardinal Hill for rehab, because I was bedridden for almost the entire time that I was in UK. Movement was a problem just because of swelling and everything. So I had to get on, and I called and asked him to get online with me so I could tell him. I was like, hey, I'm heading to UK again.
I cried again. We were in the Dunkin' Donuts parking lot.
we got everything worked out. She tried to get like 5 people to take me to Lexington without telling me. And eventually we got hooked up with one of our colleagues, decided it would be her job. And so she took me to Lexington and stayed with me until Maddie and Rachel got back to Kentucky. And then she even kept Maddie while Rachel and I were doing our thing.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else from 2017?
No, I don't think so.
2017, comparatively speaking, was chop. It was like 6 days in and out, and I was back home. 2015 was a different trip, but if somebody asked me if I would do it any other way, no way on earth. A normal transplant, that second transplant to me was normal, was a cakewalk. Because the first one, it was hard, but there's no sense in letting it be hard. Yet, you take it and roll with it and laugh, which I tried my darndest. And there were some issues, and there was a lot of pain involved. And my friends and my dad sat there and watch me wince. And then when the pain would die away, I would pick right back up where I was in our conversation.
You want to talk about how you're doing now before we move on?
Now is not that big of a deal. It's we've had one kind of scare last fall. The amount of protein in my urine was abnormally high, and they wanted to know why. So we did another biopsy, and there was something wrong, but they weren't able to really determine what it was. And so we started treatment, basically a chemo type of treatment, to try to stop the protein from being released from the body. And there were 2 IV treatments that lasted almost a full day on 2 separate days. We had to have it injection and then a week off and then the second injection. So it was, the better part of a month. We had to get used to that. And everything so far, the numbers have been good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you had really good labs last month. We could talk for a long time about that.
Yeah. There's all kinds of stuff.
So we've been brainstorming, and this is not an exhaustive list, I wouldn't say, but things we did, and then things that we would do differently. What would you say you did to stay mentally healthy during the last 8 years of your life?
I take kind of everything as it comes. Like Rachel said, I listen to a lot of Bob Marley, and I listen to reggae in general, and it's that type of thing. That's the way I look at it. I try to take it as easy as possible. You're dealt your cards. You have to figure out how to play them. I don't like to let it control me. I don't want it to win. And so just relying on family, and then for me, the staple is music and television. My father stayed with me in the hospital. He wouldn't leave. And my mother passed away just 2 months before the first transplant. It was like it was meant to happen. It was meant to go wrong, so it would distract him. It would help my kidney situation, but it would distract him. And I think it probably helped his mental health just as much, if not more, than mine.
Yeah. Yeah. And I put that as the first thing that we did. And I know that's pretty obvious, but in our situation where Maddie was so little, I couldn't clone myself and be 2 places at once. So I spent a lot of time driving 68 back and forth, from home to the hospital and so on. We read a lot. We brought a lot of books. People brought things for us. Like one time, one of our colleagues was there for something else, and it was like 8 or 10 books in a bag, and was just like, here you go. You need to do something right now. And also, when Chad was able to get up out of bed when he was still at the hospital, they were having some kind of it was like a book. And,
yeah, it's like a book fair.
Yeah, essentially down in the lobby. And so I wheeled him. It was probably the first time you went outside.
Yeah, definitely.
In 4 or 5 weeks. And so I, draped the blanket over him so he wasn't embarrassed.
It was October.
Yeah. We rolled down and we looked through the books and we walked outside. And both of those things are things that we know now are super important and play a big role in being mentally healthy. We kept in touch with a lot of people. Thank goodness for cell phones. I can't imagine doing this 10 or 15 years ago and people not knowing what was going on or we couldn't, get away to tell them.
Facebook, everything.
Yes. Facebook was a big way for us to easily tell people, who are friends or family, how things were going. I continued to work, which is kind of sounds crazy, but
it was hard for him.
It was a good distraction for me. Those of you who have been in the hospital setting before, especially the 2 stints he did in ICU, and things are beeping and like it's super scary and you can see what's happening around you. I was thankful for the distraction of reading and work and things like that. Anything else on that side?
Not really. I think it depends on the individuals.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody is a sports fan, whatever's on, that will probably help them. Maybe having somebody there to watch it. My father and I discovered Law and Order SVU when I was in the hospital, and I think we may have watched it like every season that was available then. Given what I teach, it's actually kind of fitting. But anything that can reduce stress that people may have, I was chilling. The nurses were all really, really good. They did their jobs incredibly well. I could hear other patients who weren't so chipper. And so I knew that they had stuff. They had stressors going on with them too. So when they came in, I just soon joke with them, and it kind of reduced their stress and mine too. Everybody got to laugh. They always say laughter is the best medicine. And if it's not the best, it still works. Yeah,
absolutely. We tried to think of some things that we might do differently. And we've done some of these things during quarantine, in the challenging time that everybody has gone through. We have really worked hard to intentionally talk about things that we appreciate. And I don't know that I could have done that in September 2015. I was like shell shocked. I think that we could have asked for help sooner. I mean, people were ready to help us. But I think we had a friend who had been a librarian in our school who had moved to Lexington, and she kept saying, "What can I do? What can I do?" And I was like, "I don't know, stuck up here. I need to be home. Everybody's exhausted. Nobody knows what's going on." And finally she just showed up one day. She was like, "We're going to get something to eat. Like, you're going to walk away from this ICU room right now. Like, come on." I said, okay. So then about 2 weeks later, I had brought Maddie up to try to let her see Chad. And that, like you said, that didn't work. And she's like, "Okay, Maddie's coming with me and my granddaughter to the art studio, and we'll be back sometime." I was just like, I totally could have asked you to do that, and you would have done it in a heartbeat. So just things like that. Like, it's okay to ask for help. And I think that has been reiterated, especially in the last year. And then the final one is everybody tries to do this, I think.
Every New Year.
Sometimes we're more successful than others. But we know that in stressful situations, we tend to eat poorly. And so just to be aware that, what we fuel our bodies with is so important to how we feel and what we think about and how much energy we have and how we interact with others. And I know that's hard to do in stressful situations. But if you can realize it and get in the habit of doing it, then when things do get stressful, you can power through. So that's our story. I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen now, if that's okay.
Thank you guys so much for sharing that with us. It sounds like it was a wild ride, but you made it through, and that's awesome. I do have a couple of questions for you, just from different perspectives. A lot of our transplant recipients, when I'm interviewing them for their story or while I'm talking to them, if they're a new volunteer, they mention survivor's guilt a lot. Is that something that you have ever experienced? And if not, or if so, how have you combated that? And if not, what's your dialogue? What's your dialogue in your mind to talk
The only
about?
thing that even would remotely resemble it, there are a couple of things. One is appreciation. That's the main thing that I had. The way I look at it is, we sign our driver's license or we have it in our will. That should be enough for a recipient to realize the person's okay with it. It's not like they can have the organs taken without permission. People who do it for a reason. They want it to be given to somebody else and for someone else to benefit from it. And I think that's the biggest thing to tell possible recipients or recipients after surgery is to focus on that. I wanted to know who the recipient was or the parents. And when I say that, of course, they're not going to give me the ID, but I wanted an address. And I wrote letters with both transplants. I have no idea if they were given to the people, but it was just an expression of appreciation. I have never felt any type of guilt, because it's like I said, I think when people put that out there, I think that's why they do it. And that's the one thing I wanted to make sure that people try to focus on. Anybody who starts to feel that way, someone needs to let them know, it was done for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
They put that on there because they cared enough. They may have had somebody else who had gone through something similar, and they wanted somebody else to be able to benefit from their own choice. And I think that's the best thing to do for folks.
Absolutely. And I think that a lot of our donor families would agree that, not to speak for anybody, but some things that I've heard while speaking to donor families is that it's given them some peace to know that they can, that their loved one, that's their last thing that they did on this earth was help somebody else. And I think that that's really a beautiful sentiment. And I love how how you focus on, like, they wanted to do this. This is something that they wanted to do. And now you're a steward of that last wish of theirs. You are the person who's carrying that gift. And it just sounds like you guys are doing a lot to make sure that it was, it's very clearly given to a very great person who's teaching the youth of America and doing great things, and raising a beautiful daughter. So that's really wonderful. I don't see any questions in the chat box just yet. Somebody did mention that they did some art therapy, and that was really helpful. Natalie said that. Cara Bram actually mirrored that with some paint by numbers and things like that. A lot of people write letters and don't necessarily hear back from their donor families because, of course, grief is very fluid, good days and bad days, and sometimes you're not able to deal with it, and sometimes you're more open to it. So it just kind of depends on what day they get that letter. But if anybody out there has any other suggestions or tips that really helped get them through their transplant, especially if it was particularly difficult, like your first one, Chad, what it sounds like. So if it was particularly difficult, something that really helped you get through, that would be, please drop them in the comments box. You can watch this after our broadcast as well. But that kind of positive tips, those kinds of positive tips and everything are something that everybody can benefit from, transplant or no transplant, just coping mechanisms, because man, this has been a hard year for everyone. And I think that we could all use a little bit more positivity and what we can do to lift each other up. And you guys are a perfect example of that, and how and very apparent that you guys lift each other up every day. You guys seem to make each other laugh quite a bit, which is great.
Oh, goodness.
If I don't see any other questions, so that is our broadcast for this evening. But Rachel, Chad, thank you so much for sharing your story with us and coming up with some tips that really helped you through the process. I guess that's it. Thank you guys so much, and have a wonderful Thursday night.
Thank you for having us.
You
Bye,
too.
guys.